Greetings. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Nicole Presley. And before we start anything, I'd like to thank Northgate for bringing this free online class to the community so that we could continue to celebrate the flavors of our culture with these delicious dishes of Cuaresma, Lent. We have a lot to cover today. Today we will be making Capirotada de Chocolate and also a Lasaña de Chile Poblano y Atún. And I'm super excited. I hope you follow along. If you have any questions, my friend Tere will be monitoring the questions. Just ask in the chat box and she'll bring it to the class. So without further ado, let's get started. We are going to start by making our sauce. So for the capirotada sauce, we're going to start by making capirotada. You know what? Actually, let me put in one of my dishes into the oven. If you're cooking with me, please preheat your oven to 350 degrees. All right. I just want to be able to show you a final. So I'm going to throw something in the oven now so that when we're done with the class, we can eat. Okay, so put on my timer. Hi you guys. Thank you for coming in.
And I just put all the ingredients on the chat, but they will also be emailed with the class thank you email.
Okay. So for the Capirotada de Chocolate, these are our key ingredients we're going to use for our sauce. And we're going to use 8 ounces of piloncillo, 1 canela stick, 2 cloves, you could probably barely see them, a teaspoon of vanilla, and I think this is like 3 ounces of Mexican chocolate tablet. And to that, I am going to add 3.5 cups of water. We're going to put this on for a slow simmer while we build up the rest of the dish. So go ahead and start your sauce if you're making it with us today. So next, we're going to go ahead and cut up our bolillos. So I'm using day-old bolillos from Northgate. I don't know how this bolillo survived in my house, but every time I walk into Northgate, it's like I get hit with the sense of heaven with the bolillos, and they're right in the front of the market. So of course I grab a ton of them. Anyway, this is a day-old bread. You can go up to, I'd even say 2 to 3 day-old bread. The more the stale the bread, the better. And we're going to cut it into 1/2-inch slices. And typically for a 3-quart baking dish, you'll need about 4 to 5 bolillos, depending on how much bread you want or how you position the bread. But typically I use about 4. And I like to save all of these little nibs. So like the ends come in handy for the spaces in between. Next, what you're going to do is get some butter. And I have my butter here. And we're just going to put a thin little layer of butter on each bread. The way I'm toasting my bread today, because we're about to toast it, is on an open griddle. You could also get a baking sheet and melt butter and brush all the slices of bread that way, and then toast it in the oven for about 30 minutes at 300 degrees. But that's that's one method of doing it. This is another method, and we're gonna do it on the open griddle. So I'm just toasting both sides of the bread, and that way you can see how to toast your bread. Okay, so the bread is stale, plus we're gonna toast it so that it can get extra crunchy. And I have the griddle going already here. You can also buy pan tostado ya hecho at Northgate. They have it there. If you want to buy it already toasted, that's a convenient way of doing it. I like to use that method when I'm in a hurry, but if not, I also like to get this extra buttery toast going. And you can also do this ahead of time, like you could do it the day before if you want, just to cut down on time. I did all of mine this morning. You can see there's a mountain of bread here next to me that I've already done. Okay. I know that's a lot of bread, but I was gonna make 2 of them, and I'll probably make another one later to give away as a gift. So I just have all my bread here, but I wanted to show you how I toast the bread. So you want to move back there so people can see. Do we have any questions so far?
No, Nicole, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. And everybody that's fed it, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat and she'll be sure to answer you. Okay. Let me see, I'm looking for. So I'm just gonna go ahead and flip my bread over, and you could see it's already turning a nice golden brown color, and that's what we're looking for. I like to get them even a little more charred up, you know, really brown. And you know they're ready when they become stiff. Like I said, you can also do this in the oven where you just do the same concept of slicing the bread, putting butter on it, toasting it in the oven at 300 degrees for about 30 minutes. I like to flip them 15 minutes in, just so that we get an even brown on both sides. But this is a good way too, because I feel like this method, you really get a lot of butter on the bread, and who doesn't like butter on their bread, right? So, okay. Making sure that's happening, and while that's happening, I am going to stir my sauce just to break down this piloncillo, put it on the side there. So this piloncillo syrup is like a typical piloncillo syrup that people use traditionally for capirotada. The only difference is that I'm also putting a tablet of chocolate in it. So when I first got asked to do this class, I was asked, can you do a capirotada with a twist? And I started to think about all of the things that go into the bread pudding. And unlike, or like most bread puddings, there's a binder. And in capirotada, typically that binder is cheese. So I started to think of the sweet things that go well with cheese. And one of the first things that popped in my mind was hot chocolate, the way Colombian people do it, with a big chunk of cheese in it. And I thought, chocolate and cheese. I think I'm gonna try and make a capirotada with cheese as my dairy and as my binder, and still use a chocolate de agua. So no dairy in the syrup, somewhat like the traditional capirotada syrup of piloncillo, but with a touch of chocolate. And we're also going to elevate that chocolate flavor in our capirotada with chocolate chips in our mix. So this capirotada is absolutely delicious. I can't stress to you guys how I'm completely in love with it, and I hope that you enjoy it as well. So, okay, these panes right here are perfect. Do you see how golden they are? Let me show you. Get it here. See that? That's perfection to me. So I'm going to put it back there. And how are you all doing? Do you need any questions?
No, not yet.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions, you could either put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and I will get them to Nicole.
Perfect. All right. I'm just waiting for this piloncillo mixture to come to a boil, for the piloncillo to actually melt. And in the meantime,
Nicole, they
let's
want to say happy birthday to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been a few days of celebration, and I feel like this capirotada is the absolute topper to the celebration because it's absolutely delicious, and I'm happy to share it with you all. Okay. I should have used the smaller piloncillo cones, the little 4-ounce ones and used 2 of them, but oh, there, it broke open. It's on its way to melting. And so our breads look like they are ready as well. So we are close to building. In the meantime, I am going to talk about some of the ingredients in this capirotada. So for this dish, I'm using dates. I feel like dates are such a nice component to use right now. They are having their moment, we shall say, and they're a low glycerin fruit. They also act sort of like a caramel, and I love dates. They remind me of driving to Mexicali, right? You know, right when you're driving through Calexico, there's all those little date stands, and you could get date shakes, and I just love them. So I found them at Northgate, and I'm like, yes, these are going in my capirotada because they're sort of like a really yummy natural caramel, and who doesn't love caramel? So this is how we're going to cut them. We're just going to pop them open like that with your hands, super easy, and then take out the seed. That's it, or the pit, I should say. And then, you know, use your scissors to just cut them down the middle. So I stacked them both side by side. So now I have 4 pieces, and this is it. And then when we put them in, it depends on how datey you want it. If you want them in big chunks, you can leave them in big chunks, or you can cut them small. Just depends. I like dates. I eat them just like that, so I'm okay with big chunks. Okay, I'm gonna turn on this, and it looks like we may be ready to build. Let me just give this a quick stir. Yes, smells so good in here. If you're cooking along, I'm sure it smells really good in your home too. Okay. So now we are gonna butter our dish. I just want to take a little scoop of butter and add more butter into the dish. So here, let's trying to make sure the camera there, you can see it now. And be generous with your butter. This is going to prevent anything from sticking to the side, but it's also going to give your capirotada a really nice flavor. All right. Let me just wash my hands because I'm all butter girl right now. All right. Are you all ready to continue with our lesson? Let me put this over here so you can see the build. And I got my dish. I'm gonna start building here. So I'm gonna take my little pan that I just toasted and I'm just gonna dump it in there. And I'm gonna let that soak for a few seconds and then start to build into the bottom of my capirotada dish. And like I said before, I like to keep all of the little nibs because it really helps fill in the center spaces in between. As you can see, like we're not going to be able to get every space, but a lot of them. It's like a fun little puzzle. It's the mosaic of chocolate soaked bread. Tetris. Okay. All right, now for the fun part. So next, I'm going to take a banana and gonna add a few sprinkles or a few slices of banana right inside. It's okay if I use my butter knife. Because we're gonna add more butter to this anyways. Some people don't add the banana right in, but I like to. The top layer, I will wait till the end so that we could add fresh banana once this comes out of the oven. But in the meantime, I'm also gonna take some sliced almonds. And I got all of these at Northgate as well. I got everything at Northgate. Okay. And our dates. So we're gonna build the dates right in. They're like our little natural pieces of caramel. Obsessed with dates. And we're gonna add some coconut as well. How do you make your capirotada? Anybody want to talk about how they make their capirotada? And I also grated some queso Oaxaca, so quesillo, however you like to call it, and just gonna add that right in. This is our binder. This is gonna help keep all the layers together. You don't have to overdo it. we can reserve most of the cheese for the top, but it's nice to have it in there, that sweet and salty. And then I'm going to just take a few chocolate chips and drizzle those in, because we love all that chocolate. Speaking of Oaxaca, how was your trip, Tere? You just came from there.
I had so much mole. It was so delicious. I felt a week wasn't enough. And I
Right.
will just tell you, it is heaven for food.
I know. I'm with you. Can't wait to go back. Can't wait to go back. And I'm so happy I followed you. I followed along and was just living vicariously through you. Like, oh, I love it there. I want to go back.
Yes, the food was amazing. It's like you run out of time because there's so many good places to go eat.
So many things to eat, and you can't like eat that and then eat right away. I was trying to eat as much as I could all day long. It's such a beautiful place. I feel like it's one giant art exhibit.
So they have a question if they could use Monterey Jack cheese instead of the queso Oaxaca.
100%. Yes. I feel like, growing up, my family used Monterey Jack cheese and even sometimes cheddar cheese, just because in the 70s, because that's when I was a little girl, there was no, a lot of access to Mexican cheeses or like Oaxacan cheese at that time. There was, but it was very limited. So absolutely, I feel like there are lots of families who use Jack cheese, and it's whatever makes you happy. So if you love that flavor, it's a melting cheese and it'll work great too. But today we're using Oaxacan cheese, and it's also a melting cheese, and it's a mild melting cheese that isn't quite as salty as Monterey Jack, but still very tasty. So whichever cheese you want to use is fine. Okay.
Thank
So
you,
now we're
Nicole.
on. You're welcome. Now we're on to our next layer. So we have more bananas. And I feel like at this point we need to spoon in some of the syrup, just because if we don't, then only the top will get all the syrup. So I'm going to take a ladle now and spoon in some of the syrup. Alrighty. That chocolate syrup is so good. I think you all are going to love this rendition of Capirotada. It might be my new favorite. Okay. So continue with the same build with almonds, bananas, and we're also going to add some dates. And feel free to really use any nut that you like. You could also use peanuts or pecans, chopped walnuts, piñones, like pine nuts, anything that you like. Make this your own. These are the flavors that I felt combined the best, like chocolate and dates and bananas and coconut with a mild cheese with a little chocolate syrup sauce. Right. And I'm so glad that that this came up about the cheese, because it challenged me to rethink how I do things, when I was younger versus how I make dishes now, things that are traditional versus things that have evolved based on what ingredients were available. And, you know, traditions, they're all there. None is wrong and none is right. They're all perfect. And I love it. Okay. So let's see, coconut. I was having a conversation with a friend earlier today, and we were talking about how capirotada recipes have have kind of disappeared out of some families' homes because their mothers were the ones who made it, and they made it a Texan style, and now they haven't been able to recreate that same flavor again, and they're constantly looking for a good one. And it made me feel like I don't want our flavors of our culture to disappear. That's why I'm so grateful that Northgate puts together these community classes where people could gather and talk about the recipes that they grew up with and how important it is to keep these recipes alive. And so without becoming like a big puddle of tears or, you know, an emotional pool, I'm just so grateful that we have this opportunity to learn these things together, and we have to teach the younger generation so that these flavors of our culture don't disappear. And thank you so much, Seta, for making it possible.
Aw, I enjoy learning about our traditions.
Me too. Okay. And now some cheese, more cheese. And then we're just going to build our last layer. This is the last layer coming up top next. And for the last layer, I kind of like to put the bread in a way where it's not laying flat, just because that's going to give it a better look once it's baked. Like, we're going to really be able to see it, and it's more inviting when there is more texture in the bread pudding. So some of my little panes are darker than others. Okay. All right. We are almost ready to put this beautiful bread pudding in the oven. Okay. Do we have any questions?
No. So Nicole, when you tried this, because I'm assuming you tried it, what did you think of it?
I'm sorry, say it again.
When you tried this new rendition of Capirotada, did you like it?
I didn't like it. I loved it. I went crazy. I was like, oh my God, it's so good. Why didn't I ever put chocolate in this before? Like, it's so delicious. It tasted like, you know, the traditional capirotada with a twist, exactly what was asked. And the chocolate, I felt, really brought on a new flavor, and it was welcomed. It fit right in. There was no protesting it. And my family was fighting for the last bits of it. So I'm sure they're happy. I kept saying, I'm making it again for my class. So, okay, let's see. Almost there. Almost there. I'm glad I toasted this bread, or we would have been here forever. Okay. One more. I do love the capirotada de leche, though. That's also a favorite of mine. So, but that one we use the picon from Northgate. And now this year, the picon con fruta seca, I was so happy when I saw that. Like, oh my God, that's perfect because people normally put, dried fruit in it and it came in on the bread. Awesome. Okay. Let me have that ladle, please. Thank you. All right, and now I'm just gonna take the rest of my syrup and pour it over the top here so that all of the bread could get soaked. And when it bakes, it doesn't dry out too much. Okay. Hopefully it's reaching the bottom. That's why halfway through, I went ahead and soaked up the bottom a little bit, just so that we can make sure that it's reaching every nib. Every part of the capirotada will have. Okay. And our last layer will get everything except for the banana. So we're gonna wait till it comes out of the oven for the banana, but it's gonna get more dates on the top. And you can go crazy with the dates if you want. Like I said, I used 6 dates. You could use 9, you could use 4, you could use however many you want, or you don't have to use them if you don't like them. But they add such a beautiful, like, caramelly flavor to this capirotada, and why wouldn't you? And dates and chocolate should be more celebrated.
Nicole, there's a question. If
Yeah.
you use plantains instead of bananas, do you have to cook them first, or will they cook in the oven?
I think that they will become a little bit sweeter if you cook them first, which might be a better fit for the capirotada. That's up to you, but it depends on how long you will cook your capirotada for. This one is only going in the oven for 30 minutes. And because it's layered, that's just basically to melt the cheese. So I would cook them personally because I feel like you would have them cooked already and you would know the exact consistency, because the consistency isn't really going to change in the oven other than the cheese.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to add some almonds here. And coconut. Gonna put in do you see how I layered the bread on top, sort of like mountainous? It has all those curves in it. It's gonna look prettier when it comes out of the oven because I did that. And we eat with our eyes first, so make it as appetizing as possible. Okay, add some more chocolate. And these as well will make us happy. Add a nice amount in the center so it gets gooey there. And last but not least, the remaining amount of cheese. And I only used about 5 ounces of cheese on this. You could use more if you'd like. It's really at your own discretion. Okay. So I'm going to put this in the oven, and then we are going to start to make our lasagna de Atún. All right. Let me just wash my hands. And if you are cooking along with me, this is a good time to grab a drink or wash your hands, whatever you want to do. So the only things I need is this and the banana. I'm going to put this in the oven for 30 minutes. Actually, I'm going to cover it with aluminum foil first. Let me just grab my aluminum foil. Thank you. Just so it doesn't, and I'm gonna tent it. I'm not gonna make it really tight. I'm just gonna tent it for about 15-20 minutes, and then the rest of the time I'll take off the aluminum foil. That's just so that nothing burns. I'm baking this at 350 degrees. Meantime, let me move this a little bit. Get this. Okay. So next, I'm like a crazy lady here with all of this stuff. Okay. Next, we are going to make our Lasaña de Chile Poblano y Atún. Okay, let me show you. I have all of our ingredients prepped here. So that.
And I actually put them in the chat too.
Okay. We're gonna do chips. This is such a delicious recipe too. And because this is a Cuaresma class, we're using tuna, but outside of this, you could absolutely use shredded chicken or shredded beef or whatever you want. But here are our ingredients. We are using Poblano Chile. We're using Poblano Chile, which I've already roasted and cut, but I'm still going to teach you how to roast it. We're using shredded tuna. We are going to saute some onions. I'm using a combination of Monterey Jack cheese and Chihuahua cheese. We're going to use some crema con sal and chips. And we're layering this exactly like you would layer a lasagna, but instead of noodles, we are using Poblano Chile. And this is a great recipe for a keto diet, or if you are watching yourself, like you don't want to eat a ton of pasta. But aside from that, it's just delicious. So let's get started. We are going to start with sauteing some onions. Actually, I'm going to saute them on this side. So if you want to follow me over here and get some butter in the pan. We're not going to caramelize the onions. We're just going to saute them until they're limp. I used about a tablespoon of butter just because it tastes nice, and everything about this recipe is creamy, which who doesn't want to have a nice creamy casserole? It's like it's almost like a Mexican tuna casserole type of thing, minus the pasta where the Poblano Chile is the star. So, okay, once the butter's melted, then go ahead and add in sliced onion. So the sliced onion, this is one onion exactly, and we're going to saute it maybe for like 5 minutes, which isn't a long time. I'm going to give it a good mix to make sure that all of the onion is coated with a little bit of butter so it fries up nicely. And while we are waiting for the onions to fry, we're also going to char our Poblano Chile. So many people char their chilies different ways. I've seen people do it on an open flame with a basket, like a little a little basket that you would put on the barbecue. I've seen people place them on a baking sheet and put them in the oven and do it that way. I personally like to do it on an open flame. And in order to achieve the perfect char, I take a little bit of oil in my hand, just a little bit, and rub it all over my chile. So we're using Poblano chili today, which is native to Mexico, and you know, a lot of people will dry the Poblano and a lot of people will dry Poblano, and once it dries, it becomes an ancho chile, which people then use in their moles, or use ancho chiles in various ways. But here, because this is a Mexican style lasagna, we're using Poblano. If Poblano isn't your favorite, feel free to use Anaheim chili or Pasilla chili. You could even do little hueritos. The reason I'm using Poblano is because it's a mild chile. It's a little more spicy than the Anaheim chile, but it's still mild enough and has a little bit of a sweet tint to it, and it just makes for a beautiful casserole. So, well, while the chili is charring on an open flame, I'm gonna go back to my onions and just make sure that they're cooking. Give them a nice stir. Do we have any questions? And again,
Nicole, we do have a question. If we can't get Chihuahua cheeses, what is a good alternative to use?
You could use Monterey Jack. You could also use Oaxacan cheese. You can use pepper jack. You could use cheddar. Just any cheese that's a melting cheese that you like. You could even use mozzarella cheese. Okay. Let's see. My little chiles charring nicely. You can see it's starting to blacken here. Got it. While that is getting nice and charred, I'm going to butter my knife so that I can build. So I can build up.
So Nicole, they have an
Yes.
electric stove, no flame. Is the oven better to char on a baking sheet?
You could do that, or you could even put your chile on a comal or a pan. I've also seen people put it on a pan, and that works as well. Like I said, I've seen all different methods, but yes, if you have an electric stove, putting it in a pan will work great. You can put it on your baking sheet too, for sure. I'm just a crazy control freak that wants to be sure that every bit of my chili's charred. So I like to do it on the open flame so that when I don't have a certain spot, or a certain spot isn't getting charred, I can hold it in place to make sure it gets charred. Okay. So I'm gonna add some butter to my dish here. Again, greasing this baby up with butter. Okay. And this is also a 3-quart. This is also a 3-quart baking dish. If you want to make it larger, I would say just if you want to do like a 13 by 9 baking dish, I would say to just add, instead of 9 chiles, 12 chiles, and maybe like a cup more of, or a half a cup more of cheese. Gonna give my onions a stir. And you can see the onions are almost there. They're becoming limp, and that's perfect. Just a few more minutes. And the reason I decided instead of adding in the onions raw is that it's going to give it more of a flavor, and it's going to help build the flavor profile of your lasagna. It's the little things that help, that make all the difference in the world when you're cooking. It takes more time, but it tastes delicious. Just like in life, it's all the little things. Do you hear the ice cream man by my house? Can you hear it in the background? Okay. So while that's trying, this is basically what we're looking for, but out all over the entire chile. And then once it's completely charred, you put it in an airtight container, a Ziploc bag or a Tupperware or anything that's airtight. And you let the chile steam in its own heat for at least 20 minutes. And what that's going to do is it's going to loosen up the skin and make it very easy to remove the charred skin from the chile. So once it's nice and charred, we're going to add it to the zip, in this case, a Ziploc bag. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Here it is in the bag. And let it sit. I already charred a chili for us earlier today. So now we don't have to wait the 20 minutes, and I will show you how easy it is to remove the skin. So you just take your chile, and I use a butter knife just because it's not gonna really cut the chile, it's just gonna scrape off the skin. And see, like I'm hardly using any force, it's just easily coming off of the chile. And it's okay if your chile tears, like that one just tore there. We're gonna use it as layers, so it doesn't have to be perfect. You just wanna take off all of the charred skin. Let me stir my onions really quick. And these look like they are about done. Okay. Once you have your onions done and your chiles are all, and we're also taking out the inside, all of the seeds, the stem, then we're going to start building. In the meantime, also, let me take out the casserole that I have in the oven now and remove the aluminum foil off of the capirotada. So 1 second. Here we go. If I'm moving too fast for anyone, please just raise your hand and say, slow down, lady. Okay. Made a little mini version. Now. Perfect. Okay. Just 15 more minutes for the capirotada, and let's build our lasagna. So you get the picture. I took off all of the charred skin, and then you would cut off the top and remove the seeds to get this. Move this over here. And I already have all of my chiles prepared. So you can see that one's not perfect, and that's okay. So you just go ahead and tear it, and we're going to build our bottom. This is our first layer into our casserole dish. I like to put pointy side, flat side, pointy side, flat side, pointy side. Because then all of the bottom surface is covered. And the same goes for the other side. So maybe do this. I used about 9 Poblano chiles for this. And I cut a few extras just in case we have some extra space. Once I have my chiles in, I am going to take a little bit of those sauteed onions, just, 1/3 of them, and add them in. Part of our build. And also, I'm going to take half of this. This is just canned tuna that I made sure when I opened the can to really squeeze out all of the liquid. And then I shredded it with my hands so that with my fingers to get that extra fine shred. Like I said, outside of Cuaresma, you can use chicken or shredded beef or just cheese, whatever you like, but it's really delicious. It's really delicious with tuna. I should continue my thoughts. Okay. And I just used this is 2 cans worth of tuna. Super cost efficient, and we love that. Okay. Then
could they
I'm
use,
sorry.
they use crab instead of tuna?
Oh yeah, you could use crab. You could use shrimp. You could use white fish, like shredded white fish. You could use anything that you like. And then I'm gonna add in my cheese. And this is looking delicious already. To make this little cheesy layer all the more special, we are going to add some crema con sal right on top of this cheese. And what that's going to do is it is going to give each layer more of a, when it melts, it's going to give each layer more of a creamy texture. And I'm just going to use about, I'd say, a 1/2 cup in between each layer. All right. So then, once I have that, you can, if you want it more spicy, you could add little chili flakes, which I want to add a little bit more chili to it. Could add more chili flakes. You could also spice it up with some salt. Not too much, but enough. You could add oregano. You could add pepper, whatever you like. I'm gonna add a little bit of onion powder. All right, let's continue. The next layer is more poblanos. You see what I mean when I say this is like a lasagna? It's all just layering. More poblanos, and let's also add some more onion here. This layer is a little bit different than the previous layer because in addition to the tuna and the onion and the cheese and the cream, we're gonna add broken up corn chips to this layer. And the corn chips are such a welcomed addition. If you're trying to keep this completely carbless, then don't add the corn chips. But if you don't mind a little bit of the carbs, oh boy, that crunch in here is perfect because everything else is creamy and soft, and then it gives you this little added texture of crunch to this. And you can serve this easily with a salad or with Mexicano arroz blanco, which is really nice too. And you can make this bigger or smaller. I made a smaller version to show you how it cuts once it comes out of the oven. And or you can, if you're having a party or you want to take this to a potluck, it's perfect to go to the 9 by 13 size. Okay, so make sure you add the crema before you add the chips. We're gonna pour this right in. We flavored the layer before with our salt and pepper and onion powder, but you can layer again a little bit of spice if you want to or not. I feel like it's probably perfectly spiced now. And then I'm gonna take some corn chips from Northgate and just open my bag. And do this. Break them right in there. Your family's gonna love you a lot if you do this. Like, oh my God, it gets better. It's like a version of a pastel azteca when you add the chips. Nobody's mad about it. I was happy with it. And I said you can use a cup in the ingredients. I listed a cup, but again, feel free to use as many or as little as you want. If it was outside of Cuaresma as well, you could use chicharrones here. Okay. And for the last layer, gonna just finish it up with our chiles. Do we have any questions?
No, I think we're all mesmerized on how this thing would, or imagining in our heads how this is going to taste.
It's so good. Okay.
And when you make them, make sure to share them with us. Tag Nicole, tag Northgate. We'd love to see how yours turn out.
Yes, please do. I'm Presley's Pantry on Instagram. If you want to tag me, I would love that. Let us know what your family thinks. We want to know. Okay, so I'm going to use the remaining onion that I have here. super yummy. And also more cheese. More cheese. And you could use any melty cheese that you like. You could use queso fresco on this as well. Like maybe one of the layers do queso fresco. I bet that would taste really nice too. Queso quesadilla. Anything you want. You could add a little bit of cheddar if you wanted to this mix, because that would taste delicious. Nobody would be angry about that either. Okay. And last but not least, we are going to pour the remaining crema con sal right over the top. You could pop this in the oven for 30 minutes or until the cheese melts. And then once your cheese is melted, you can turn on the broiler if you want it to get more golden on the top, or just leave it for an additional 15 minutes to get it nice and golden. I'm going to show you what it looks like once it's baked. Let me cut it inside so we can really get a look at it. All right. So let's see. It's cutting nicely. I would have ideally liked to have let it cool down a little bit more, because if you let it cool for, I'd say maybe half an hour, then it won't fall apart. It's more prone to fall apart when it's not completely cooled down, like probably now. But if you let it sit for at least half an hour, it'll keep its shape. So that rule also applies to like lasagna or any layered dish. So let's see. Are you gonna be friends with me, little Poblano? All righty. And there it is.
Looks bomb.
It's so hot right now, like I don't want to eat it, but it's delicious. And I've had it. I gave it to my suegra. I gave it to the neighbors when I made it, and everybody was like, oh my God, this is so good. We're so happy that you thought of us. So this is it. I hope you enjoy it. I'm also now going to take out the capirotada and we are going to finish it off. I'm going to put that piece back so it could just continue to. It can continue. Let me get my capirotada out of the oven. And we'll finish decorating it. There she is. So once your capirotada comes out of the oven, this is where the magic begins. You take your banana, because you want fresh banana on the top. If we would have baked it with the banana in there, it would have turned brown and ugly, and we don't want that. So add your fresh bananas to the top. And of course, we're also going to add sprinkles, because can't have capirotada without sprinkles. And some people add like sweetened condensed milk to the top, or ice cream, or even whipped cream, but I don't think it needs any of that. It's perfect just as is. And let me put few sprinkles on top, just on the banana so that they really show here and there. And clump your sprinkles so that people could really see them. Keep them in little clumps. That's my oven letting me know the capirotada is ready.
That looks so good, but it looks so dangerous.
It's dangerous. It sure is. Do we have any more questions?
No, we just have a lot of comments that it looks so yummy, that it looks so good, and they can't wait to try it.
Oh, yay. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into my class. Thank you, Theta, for co-hosting, and thank you, Northgate, for putting these classes together for our community. We're so grateful. We're so happy to keep all of our flavors alive and well. And I hope you'll join my next class. Thank you for coming.
And
Happy
on
New Year,
Tuesday,
everyone.
whoever likes me as a co-host, on Tuesday we have Isabela teaching us how to do a torre de marisco. And on Thursday we have our new friend, Chef Machin, who's very friends with Nicole, teaching us how to do a delicious dish too. So, and they're all going to do their own twist on capirotada like Nicole did. So see you all. Hasta pronto.
Thank you.